believe that I had a true experience with a haunting. I used to live in apartment 205 in Kingswood Apartment in Fresno, California. A lot of weird stuff used to happen there while my family and I lived there. I'm a homog. My religion is not Christianity, although I do not doubt that there is a God. I do believe in Jesus Christ, but I was simply not raised that way. My family on both my father and my mother's sides are shaman. Many do not believe our customs and ways to be valid, but you'd be surprised by how much sense it makes to us. I grew up around shaman all my life, listening to chants and stuff. It's awesome. Well, enough talk. Here's my story. When I was a little girl growing up in California and being in a homog family, I grew up with spirits and ghosts and hauntings all around me. I accept it, for it is real to me, although I've never experienced an actual haunting myself. Being around my family of shaman focused me to acknowledge the supernatural. But when I was 9, I did have an experiment on my own. Our apartment has always been rumored to be haunted. As a child, I never really paid too much attention to it. Weird things happen at night. Things go bump in the night. Dishes rattle, and doors slam. I woke up every night from a nightmare I couldn't remember and crawled into bed with my parents. My sisters complain about seeing dark shadows moving across your walls. In our culture, hauntings happen because it is caused by some or something that is associated with the family or someone in the family. In our case, it was my mother. I remember one time, my mother was cleaning the tub, and I was standing out in the hallway watching her. All of a sudden, the door slammed, and the lights went out. I heard the lock on the door click in place, and my mother screamed. I stood frozen in my spot, unable to comprehend what I just saw. I banged against the door, and then it opened. The lights were back on, and my mom was still in the tub. Naturally, she accused me of doing it. To this day, I still don't know what had happened. There was a time that something happened to me, not long afterwards, that scared me so bad I forgot about it until a couple of years ago. I remember it being around noon, and I was off on summer vacation. I just finished the 3rd grade. I was laying on my mother's bed reading a book, given me by a former teacher. I started to have this funny feeling all over my body, more like an awareness that something was watching me or something was near me. All of a sudden, the bed started to shake. I felt something, hands maybe, holding me down on the bed, and I was unable to move or even say anything, not even a scream. The bed literally shook for a few seconds. It was over in a matter of minutes, but it scared me terribly. I jumped off the bed and ran into the living room. To this day, I've never told my family or hardly anyone. Those that I've told thought I was joking. Was I? Yet the memory is so vivid, and I remember that feeling of helplessness and fright. It was weird. I sort of forced myself to forget about it until a couple years later, when my class was asked to write about an actual haunting that we know about. I don't know, but things are weird. My shaman grandfathers, both maternal and paternal, came to our house to bless our room. They performed their ritual in our room, on my mother's bed. I remember something about someone dying or committing suicide in our closet, but it was so long ago, I can't remember much about it. My mom has been having dreams about a little girl carrying a knife, chasing her through a rice field in Thailand. My grandfathers did this chant thing, and all this stuff, too much to explain, to capture this thing. They've locked her up in 2 bowls that have sealed and chained together. Part of the chain that was used to seal it was made into an anklet brace that my mother wears around her ankle at all times. The trap used to capture it was something that my grandfathers did. To this day, my mother is doing better, No more Chucky-like girls chasing her. The bowls were taken to my mom's father's altar and locked up. When he passed on, it was given to my mother to keep safe. So now, it's in our bathroom closet on the top shelf. Every time we open the door, there it is. Scary. I get the creepiest feelings when I look at it. So, you wonder, what exactly is going on and what happened? I couldn't tell you, but something did happen, and I've never been able to forget it. Could it be some evil spirit or poltergeist? Who knows? Maybe one day I'll find out eventually. Being a Catholic, I believe there is an afterlife, heaven, etc., and spirits occasionally visit people here on Earth. One winter, my family and I, mom, dad, and 2 younger sisters, went to visit and help out my grandparents, who had recently cleared some land they owned on the Tennessee River, move into their new home. The land they bought had many legends accompanying it, including stories of gold and ghosts. My sisters and I were very interested in exploring the 25 acres of wooded land that had an old Civil War home place on it. An old country store was located about a mile away, and this was the only neighbors my grandparents had. When we arrived, there was a 15-foot long, 15-foot high pile of cut-down trees that had been piled up to make room for the new house. This was a great jungle gym for my sisters and I to play and hide on, being as it was a long way from the house. One day, my mom took my youngest sister on a walk around the woods, while my other sister and I stayed on the wood pile looking into the woods. I saw this black, 4-foot high figure scrambling from tree to tree. At first I thought it was my youngest sister running around, so I called her name. She answered from the opposite direction of the figure that I saw. By that time, I was really frantic, in tears, and running home because I could still see the figure moving extremely fast. It was so fast, I would only see it for about 2 seconds at a time before it went behind another tree. When everyone was in the house, I told them, but my grandpa brushed it off as a bear, even though there aren't any bears in the area. So I felt better. About a week later, after my family and I left, more people were beginning to have experiences, I guess you could say. My grandpa had taken his dog out one night when he had heard a woman's voice faintly yell, "Help me." The dog began to bark, so my grandpa got in his truck and began to circle his property, looking in the ditches for an injured woman. He found no one and went home. About 3 months later, a lady was changing a sign outside the country store around closing time. Extremely scared and shook up, she quit her job because she had seen a quick, black, shadowy figure coming from my grandparents' woods. We still don't know what is living in my grandparents' woods, but other people have seen it, so I know it's not a figure of my imagination. Thanks for reading. One night, about 13 years ago, my brother and I were Christmas caroling with friends around our block. We were about 10 or 11 at the time. After ending the night, my brother and I said goodbye to the last of our friends who had turned in for the night. We were riding doubles on a bike that night, my brother pedaling. We approached the edge of the driveway when he suddenly stopped. We both looked across the street. I said, "Do you see what I see?" He replied, "Yeah." Happening very quickly across the street was a dark shadowy figure, void of prominent features, approximately 7 feet tall. When it began to approach us, we threw the bikes down, and we were able to slide under the electric garage door, still in process of closing. We were able to summon our friend's dad to investigate, but nothing. That night, we rode our fannies home, about 8 houses down. Amazingly, we never mentioned it to our parents, who were waiting in the driveway to take us to the town's candy cane lane. We have since told them about everything, and to this day, when I visit home and happen to walk that corner of the block at night, I'm constantly looking over my shoulder and feel as though I'm being watched. Akenesi East Pine Log Road now houses Riley's Whitby Bull Restaurant. This house was in my wife's family from the late 1960s until it was sold to the present owners, operators of the named restaurant. My family and I moved there in 1993 and lived in the house for 2 years after we moved back here from Atlanta. This house was in my wife's family from the late 1960s until it was sold to the present owners, operators of the named restaurant. My family and I moved there in 1993 and lived in the house for 2 years after we moved back here from Atlanta. This house was built in the late 1800s, estimated from the style, and was remodeled in 1914 when indoor plumbing was installed, and this date appears on the tax records, which would be correct. They used the latest remodeling date for effective date. Archaeologists from SC State Highway Department visited the site in the winter of 1994 when the road in front was being surveyed for widening. I took them under the house, and they showed me where the curve marks in the big supporting beams evidenced that the original part of the house was either built before the war between the states or wood from that era, which was recycled into the house. In any event, the home is an old, large, rambling affair of an old southern home that, like I said, is now a restaurant. It's unusual in that it is the Second Empire style, with a mansard roof and a large wraparound porch with Doric columns. On to the story. We frequently heard footsteps when no one was there, and had strange feelings that we were not alone. I could be in the front room, which I used as an office, and hear someone come down the stairs and stand at the large open pocket doors. When I turned from my computer, no one would be there. I got used to it. One day, I was relaxing in the upstairs bathroom in the old 6-long iron bathtub. It was in the middle of the day. I had some time to relax. My wife was away. The kids were in school. I had no pressing work, so I took a midday soaking bath. I was lying quietly in the hot sudsy water with water up to my neck, stretched out with a washcloth across my face. I heard someone coming down the hall. I slid the washcloth away, opened my eyes, and listened carefully, because I knew I was alone. The footsteps came slowly down the hall, towards the bathroom door, which was at the end of the hall. The footfall stopped at the door, and the old porcelain doorknob moved slightly, like someone had it in their grip, then started to turn slowly in its big square lock housing. It was right near me, because the head of the tub was by the door. I watched over my left shoulder, and then spoke. "Mary Ann?" The turning stopped. I jumped up in a torrent of steamy water and snatched the door open, and there was no one there. No one down the hall. No sounds of anyone running or jumping down the stairs. Just the sounds of dripping bathwater. I grabbed a towel and ran down the hall, down the big hallway stairs, and jumped to the landing. The front door was closed and locked. I could see down the hall to the old Victorian carved door leading out to the back porch. Nothing. I sprinted to the kitchen. Nothing. I looked out into the side drive, in the circular drive out front. No car. Nothing. Doors were locked. There was no sign of anything out of the ordinary. I searched from room to room and found nothing. I never said anything that might spook the family, but nobody likes to be in the house alone anyway. Funny thing is, now that we live in a modern house, built in 1973, across the cotton field from 801 East Pine Lock, We still hear noises and footfalls when no one else is in the house. I've sensed a presence more than once, and a teenage friend of a family told us that he saw a kind-looking old man one night, dressed in white, standing in our foyer. It was late at night, and Tyler was in the library, and from where he was sitting, he could see out into the foyer. The man in white looked at him, smiled and nodded, and turning, went down the hall. He said it was really interesting, but not too scary. My grandparents died when I was 4, and we moved into their house. They were the only people who ever lived in it. I ended up getting their room. When I was in 5th grade, I started experiencing things in my room. My TV would go on and off whenever I would think that I need to turn it on or off. I had to sleep with the hall light on. One night, I thought I saw my mom in my room standing by my closet. When I turned my light on, she wasn't there. Then I thought I saw my dad standing in the same spot, but that time I kept looking at him as I went into the hallway to see if he was still sleeping on the couch, and he was. I was looking at him in the living room, in my room, and when I turned my light on, he wasn't there, but still on the couch. It always felt like someone was watching me. Then, my last experience of seeing something was in the same spot, but just ahead looking at me. He looked like he was from the 1700s. When I tried to tell my mom, she wouldn't believe me. I'd wake up at night not being able to breathe, and my sister would run in. Then my mom started to believe me when she'd hear heavy breathing in her room when it was just her in there. I'd be walking, and it would feel like someone was trying to trip me. So I told my mom's mom, and she gave me a cross to hang in my room. When I put it up, I didn't see anything after that, but it always felt like I wasn't alone in my room. Now, years later, I found out that the guy staring at me from the 1700s looked just like a picture in our living room. He was an old relative. When I still go by the house, it still feels like something evil there, but at our new house, it feels like a household. Now that I'm 21, I think that it was my parents' dad still in the room that I had. That's the only reason. A long time ago, about 20 years or so, there was a car crash in front of my driveway. At the time, I did not live there. At that matter, nobody did. In the car, there were 6 young boys, ranging from 6 to 20. They crashed because there were a couple of drunk drivers who hit them head on. All the young men died in the car. About 10 years later, me and my family moved in a double wide on the lot in front of where the men died. About 1 year later, there was an awful car crash at the exact same spot of where the young men died. The woman was not killed, but she was seriously injured. After a couple of years, I went down to get the mail when I heard a strange noise, like a young boy crying. I was the only one at home at the time. I looked around and seen nobody. The crying became fainter and fainter until I could hear no more. The next day, I went back down to check the mail, and I heard talking, 2 men, about 18 years of age. I looked around and saw nobody once again. I listened to the conversation, and I couldn't make out anything they were saying, but I could hear the voices as clear as day. Soon after, the voices began to fade away. I talked to my grandmother, who lives just up the road. She told me that the accident happened about 20 years ago, and everyone in the car were killed. I asked her what time it was that they wrecked. She said it was about 5 to 10 p.m. Around 7 p.m. is when the young woman wrecked her car. A few years after the woman wrecked her car, another woman broke down on the bridge, several feet away from where the young man crashed. Another time, a couple were driving with a full tank of gas when all of a sudden, their gas tank just went empty, right where everything was happening. There were several more breakdowns and accidents that happened over the years where the young man crashed, and more of my family members have heard strange talking and crying below our driveway. After time we have moved, and still, there have been breakdowns and accidents at that same location. We think that the bridge and the area around it is haunted by the ghost of the 6 young men. Hey guys, it's Phantom of Darkness here, and I would like to take this opportunity to let you know that you can subscribe if you're not subscribed, but definitely hit the like button because it really helps my channel grow. I mean, if I like likes, then you like likes, then the world likes likes, but then it will turn into love because it's, I don't know what I'm talking about, guys. But seriously, thank you so much for this video. I'm giving the video to you guys, so I don't know why I said thank you. But you guys know what I mean, hopefully. Well, probably not. But that's why you guys are used to me, if you've listened to me. And if you've come across my video for the very first time, well, there's a lot to explain in the outros, but basically, I make these silly little outros until the end of time, or until I drop, and yeah, that's how I close out the video. So, if you like what I'm doing, go ahead and comment below, and let me know how you feel about the stories, and even if you don't feel great about the stories, or if you don't feel great about anything, comment anyway and say something nice, say something mean, say something anything. Anything is anything to me, so it's good. Yeah. Alright. Oh yeah. This is definitely the epitome of anything cringe that I've ever done on my outros. But seriously guys, leave in the comment section below which story you love the most, and what other stories you'd like to hear. Why not we hear that? I don't know. Okay guys, I'm gonna go. Love you. Goodbye.